Welcome to NetApp Insight. We are here doing a special crossover vBrownbag Tech Talk at Insight and an episode of the GestaltIT Roundtable podcast. I am Stephen Foskett. I'm your host for the podcast, and I am thrilled to be joined by some very wonderful people, and also by Tom Hollingsworth, who you think that we never appear in the same time, but we do. But here we go. So anyway, I'm Stephen Foskett. You can find me at sfoskett on Twitter. And who are you, Tom?
I'm Tom Hollingsworth. I'm a networking blogger. You can find me on Twitter as Networking Nerd.
Hi, I'm Enrico Signoretti, actually Signoretti as it is pronounced in the US, and I'm writing on Juco.it.
Hi, I'm Andy Banta. I'm a storage janitor at NetApp SolidFire, and you can find me at Andy Banta on Twitter.
And actually, before I get too far into this, I want to point out, Andy, I think I took your Twitter photo like 4 years ago, or your LinkedIn photo.
No, you took my LinkedIn photo.
I took your LinkedIn photo.
Yes,
And I think that was the day I met you.
It probably was the day I met you. That was also the day I met Dave Wright.
How weird is that?
Ooh. That was...
It's like, what is it called? It's a coincidence. That's right.
There are no coincidences.
There are no coincidences.
No, there is no coincidence.
I see
But
Luca with a thing on a stick. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a crazy place to do. So it was the day you met Dave Wright.
That was the day I met Dave Wright. I don't remember if you remember. It was a like storage field day.
It was a symposium. Flash memory.
Symposium.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was a free event, so I decided to sign up for it. And it was incredibly boring in the morning, where everybody was saying flash fast, blah blah blah. And I was talking to one of the other guys there at the event, and I said, my choices after lunch are to go home or to stir the pot. And I think you remember that I actually stirred the pot quite a bit in the afternoon.
Yes, you did. And that's how I got to know you, because I was like, who is this guy? And you were a VMware engineer at the time, right?
Yes,
doing storage
I was,
work.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. And but I found out too that you were at Sun for a long time doing storage stuff.
I was at Sun for a long time.
I was
Yes.
one of your customers then.
I'm sorry.
That's boring. Okay, let's keep moving. Yes, but that's fantastic. And so now you're with SolidFire at NetApp. So you came full circle and joined Dave Wright on his impossible mission to write a scalable storage platform.
I don't think it's an impossible mission.
Did it work?
We're still working on it.
Yep.
I talked to Dave Wright and actually got to talk to Adam Carter shortly after that about possibly joining SolidFire then. And I'm kicking myself because I joined somebody else for a year and a half before actually making it to SolidFire.
But you got to present at Tech Field Day.
That is right. I got to present
Yeah.
Tech Field Day. And I think you should point out that since you actually have video on this rather than just your typical audio podcast,
Yeah.
and we have an audience, we can also do the wave up here.
Okay, hey, let's do that. Let's do the wave. Ready? All right. Yes, those of you listening, we actually just did the wave.
We just did the wave, and
thank you,
we're getting applause from a small portion of the
We've
audience.
got a good audience here. We got a good audience.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of folks that we know. So
Yeah.
so we're at NetApp Insight. This is the first time I've been to Insight. First time Tom's been, and Enrico also.
Also for me.
And okay,
Yep.
so we don't know anything. As far as we know, this is the best NetApp Insight that ever has been.
That's right.
Now our audience has been to Insight
like
before.
most virgins who think
Are we
that the
right
first
or are
time
we
they have
wrong?
sex is the kind of sex they've ever had.
All right. Okay. So Ed Morgan says we are right. This is the one that has SolidFire at it, and so it makes it the best NetApp Insight
There you
ever. And I see Amy Lewis saying I totally agree. She's right there with you. Right there with you. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting trends at NetApp Insight, of course, is that this is the first time NetApp has really come out strongly and said we're not a single product company, we're not the filer company anymore. We have a new CEO, we have a new marketing team, we've got a new really, really strong product line. NetApp is no longer the filer company. And it's not just SolidFire either, because they're talking about cloud storage and they're talking about backup. So what do you think, Enrico, of this whole story?
So as I started to hear about the data fabric concept, this is all the umbrella where they are putting everything under it. And it's actually interesting because it's a quite unique approach. If you look at all the vendors in the storage space now, they have different strategies, but none of them are actually talking about integrating the different platforms and integrating them with the cloud this concept of the data mobility, which is very important for the modern enterprise, at least. It's sometimes you don't find it, and in this case they are really strong. I have to say
they have multiple platforms, but they're not just separate platforms like a certain other company. They're actually trying to integrate them somewhat and make there a bridge. There'd be a data bridge across them.
The idea now is that they are not trying to on-topizing everything, finally. So each single platform has its own personality, I would say, even also because they are actually different. So there is object storage, scale-out storage, and cloud storage now, but they are connecting all the dots. So you can move data between this platform with the standard tools. Not all of them are available now. I have to say that part of the success will be the execution in building this ecosystem of links and connections, but the idea is great. Okay, that's I have to say that. Then I think it will take 1-2 years to see a first bunch of products. Now there are 2, 3, 4 different solutions, and so they are in the right path.
Yeah, and one of the things, so the three of us were in the analyst portion yesterday, and I don't think that George Kurian's section was NDA. We'll pretend it wasn't. So I don't think we're spilling any beans here, but I mean, he basically came out with a corporate strategy for NetApp that says that so many other companies are focusing, are trying to build convergence. They're trying to make storage and servers and everything part of the same thing, and he was laying out a vision of NetApp as really still hoisting that flag of being the independent storage company with many different platforms and many different products that will work with any vendor, any server vendor, any networking vendor. We talked about that, Tom. What do you think?
I think it's absolutely true. I mean, there's still something to be said for a company that doesn't have an integrated stack all the way up and down, because that means that you can add it to just about anywhere. And that also goes with the message, I think it was Henri was saying repeatedly for the last 2 days, I don't work for a hardware company, I work for a software company.
Yeah.
And that's what NetApp's really trying to build, in my mind, is they're trying to build a software stack that integrates all of the scale-out cloud object storage into something that can be put down almost anywhere on any kind of disk below it. And that speaks more to the disparate, here's product X and product Y and never the twain shall meet kind of thing. And it gives you a more unified vision of what they're trying to accomplish.
And coming from the networking space, Tom, where Cisco is the gorilla, the big gorilla, this is kind of an interesting time for our industry, because Cisco and EMC, of course, have been best friends forever for a really long time. But of course, with Dell in the picture, and that's a little strange now. That's a little strained, and suddenly we see Cisco and NetApp holding hands.
Yeah, they've doubled down on FlexPod, and I think we've been saying for a long time that the handwriting was on the wall, not just because of EMC, but because of the whole VMware aspect of it. And with the ability to bring in FlexPod now as a viable alternative to the other converged solution, I think that gives everyone a little bit more breathing room, because you're not locked into something that, oh, hey, guess what? Next week we're swapping all the pieces out of this that aren't from our organization, and we're jacking the price up 2x.
Do you see that happening with, vBlock?
I'm not going to say, but yeah.
Because that would be a big concern. I mean, if these companies are no longer going to be best friends forever, suddenly we're into a weird relationship status where, Cisco's X is now hanging out, or now part of the family with, somebody who they don't really like, and then they're,
This is pretty much the genesis of Facebook's "it's complicated" relationship status.
Yes, but the thing is, not only did EMC and Dell just set their relationship status as, it's complicated, so did Cisco, and so did NetApp.
Yeah.
And HP's like, hey, hi, Oracle, hey, I'm over here, So what do we got here?
That's like your ex-wife's hot girlfriend who moves in, or hot sister who moves in with you.
So which is the hot ex-girlfriend?
Well, HP, but it's not necessarily. Never mind.
Okay. So I was just trying to puzzle that out. Okay.
Can I add something on the fact that being the only vendor, so 100% storage vendor, okay, today, it's quite important because we are living in a world where we all now know that data is gravity, and managing data is not that easy.
Andy really knows that there's such a thing as data gravity.
And so I really think that, Andy probably is better than me talking about this, but actually it's important having tools that help enterprises, especially enterprises that are not used to all this growth that they are seeing now, and simplification. And back to the point of convergence. Convergence is all about simplification. So you buy this kind of system because they simplify your life. And when you get a simple way to manage storage through VMware, for example, without all this complexity, like SolidFi. One of the messages from SolidFi is the storage for people who hate storage.
I hate that message because I like SolidFire and I like storage, and so I'm just totally not. I'm conflicted. I'm deeply troubled by that.
Well, as an analyst, you're allowed to say that, but we're interested in actually selling SolidFire to consumers who are interested in
you mean buyers. Yeah, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, storage consumers. They don't necessarily need to be storage people who buy storage. They need to be customers who need storage and still hate it.
And really, who doesn't need storage, right, Tom?
Yeah.
I plead the fifth.
Okay.
Well, one of the other things that we saw in the keynote that I think is another point that SolidFire is emphasizing is the ability to use QoS with a very simple mechanic of, 2 clicks and three entries. Coming from the networking world, if you could give me a 2-click QoS solution, I would marry you tomorrow, because QoS is the most complicated dark magic in the world, and when it's working, it works great.
You hear that, product managers?
Yeah.
Tom's available. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, we even SolidFire has even tried to take it one step further, where you don't even need to click in the GUI at all. One of the messages that we're actually trying to deliver with our vVol solution that comes out with Element OS 9 is the idea that you can completely drive this from the VMware admin side of the world.
Yeah.
That there's absolutely no reason to bring up your storage UI at all, ever, once you turn on vVols.
And that's one of the key elements of convergence. We were talking about that this morning. We recorded an episode of the podcast about hyperconvergence. And one of the points that I was trying to make there is that one of the overlooked elements of convergence and hyperconvergence is the integration aspect. If you have, just because you have everything running on one piece of hardware, I don't call that converged or hyperconverged unless the storage basically disappears and becomes just part of the overall infrastructure. Right, over a part of the experience for the admin. Right. I need something, I'm going to provision it, and then storage happens and compute happens. And unfortunately, most of the hyperconvergence and converged plays as well forget that there's that other part, that networking needs to happen too.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's actually one of the things where if VMware could make their software-defined networking solutions as invisible as they've enabled storage systems to be, they could turn the entire thing into the VMware admin owns the world.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the goal of hyperconvergence would be the VMware admin owns the world.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be at, I'm going to say this, it doesn't need to be at the small scale that hyperconvergence goes into. Hyperconvergence is not a large play.
Yeah, hyperconvergence is a way to do converged infrastructure.
Yes.
But I think all infrastructure has to converge in terms of the management element that you're talking about.
I won't disagree with that.
You wouldn't disagree with that. I'm not surprised. But
wait, I would disagree. No.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other, well, I guess interesting story, as as Enrico was pointing out too, is that we have here a situation where companies are building. Wow. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. There's a horrible noise just now. So we have a situation where companies are building feedback throughout the audio system. Now I'm forgetting what I was just going to say.
as an
So you're
companies
saying
are
that
building-
I said something about.
You said something smart. That's what it
about
was.
they are seeing data grow. No.
Oh, locality, data locality, and data gravity.
okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for. Okay, we'll get back on track now. Okay, so companies are building all these converged systems, and they're moving data, they're moving storage into the server, and that makes a lot of sense in terms of compute. But one of the interesting things, one of the analysts pointed out to me yesterday at Analyst Day at Insight was, things go in waves, right? And you've got the wave of convergence, and then you've got the wave of divergence, right? And there's a reason we created shared storage, and it was because we didn't want the data to live in the server. That was the whole point, and we spent literally decades building a way to pull the data out of the server so that we could enable things like sharing and data motion and advanced data features. And this whole path toward convergence kind of makes that, toward hyperconvergence. If you have the data live inside the server, it makes it a little more difficult to achieve some of those goals.
I think so hyperconvergence today solves just a portion of the problem of an enterprise. If you look at the entire spectrum, you have in the middle hyperconvergence that can solve maybe 60 to 70% of the problem of a medium to large enterprise in Europe, which means small to medium enterprises in US. Okay, and you have this portion left, which is the high capacity on one side and high performance on the other. They are not covered by hyperconvergence, and probably they will never cover this portion. And having I agree, hyperconverge is trying to put all together, but actually, again, if you have tools to move data around, so it's just a layer of storage that can talk with the other layers, which can be cloud object storage for the large capacity, and on the other side could be block devices very with a high performance, and you maintain the same management tools. It can be vCenter and something that manages storage, a data fabric kind of
data fabric,
GUI,
or
I don't know.
a data mobility layer.
Yeah.
Essentially, we need storage virtualization.
Yeah,
To go back to the 90s.
If you can, but more than storage virtualization as data virtualization probably, because you don't care about the storage underneath, you care about the data. You give the data, a value, and data moves wherever you want. So if you have the ability to have the hyperconverged node that can access external storage, which is probably much more performant than the internal storage, you can easily achieve the goal. So you can move data where you need to access it.
So are you channeling Clear Sky data right now?
Sorry?
Are you channeling Clear Sky data?
Well, there's a bunch of companies working on these things,
Yeah.
and they're honestly, I love the idea of having a data mobility layer, a data management layer, whether the data is local in hyperconverged or whether it's external on an array or even in the cloud.
But I think we're seeing that more and more with companies that they've decided that the data doesn't need to stay in one spot. If the data can be moved, it should be moved. Whether we throw it on the cloud for bursting at the end of the month for reports, then we pull it back down because we don't want it to live up there because the mean time to exposure in the public cloud is shrinking by gaps huge every month. And so by giving them that flexibility, by giving them the desire to move things to where the best place to take advantage of it is, it really helps sell those kinds of solutions. Because if the reason why we don't want the storage to live on the server is because getting the data out of the server is hard. But if that mobility layer helps that, then does it matter where the data lives at that point?
And it kind of begs the question about convergence and about all of these things that we're trying to accomplish, and it kind of leads us back to the idea that maybe we do want a shared storage system, an external shared storage system, which means that maybe we want a company that makes external shared storage systems and isn't in metaphorically in bed with one of the server vendors or one of the virtualization vendors or something. So,
Do we know any of those companies?
yeah. Well, honestly, we're giving short shrift to the other big storage company, HDS. So it isn't. NetApp isn't the only big storage company out there, and of course, there's startups that would very much like to be big storage companies as well. So, perhaps we're actually seeing a situation where basically EMC vacated the middle, and then NetApp is moving in, and the others are moving in, and we end up with a new storage industry instead of losing the storage industry.
Yes, of course. Also, there are a lot of software-defined plays now that are coming in, so it's much easier than in the past to build a storage system, because you can build really cool things out of commodity servers. So
yeah, that's one of the things that we heard at the analyst today. And again, this is probably not under NDA. Is essentially a lot of people are really good at bending metal.
yeah.
And why should why should every company bend their own metal when they can add so much more quickly by building software?
Yeah, I see that the commodity hardware is going so fast. It's due to Intel and the competition with the CPUs and also in the disk and SSD. So why should you build your own hardware today? Even for the tier 0, if you look at, there are some companies.
Well, it's a very good question. Why build your own SSDs? Why build your own flash modules?
Look at there are some companies started 2, 3, 4 years ago, and now NVMe is promising much more than their proprietary hardware, and they still have a small advantage, but actually, how much how much more they cost than compared to the others, and so that's I think it's something that we should always ask to our vendors.
Right here we've got Samsung showing two really interesting products. Obviously, the one that's getting the attention and the focus is this 35 terabyte SSD. They've got an SAS SSD over there with, that's just insane. And, how long will it take NetApp to implement that? Probably pretty quick, because they took the 15s already. But the other product that they've got a 6 terabyte NVMe dual port SSD. And if either product is revolutionary, it's the 6 terabyte NVMe that's revolutionary.
Is it mine? Sorry.
So, that's going to be really interesting. Like you say, you've got this part that you can then build really radical high performance storage out of.
Right, and I think the difference is that you're going to continue to have the component manufacturers and the solution manufacturers, and almost all the solution manufacturers should be the ones who are not doing any metal bending or silicon die building or.
Yeah, they shouldn't be in the component business unless they really have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you really have to be in the component business, you're probably still better off finding a component company to do it for you. But there's companies like Xyratex and Supermicro who have gone into the business of bending metal for you already. Mm-hmm. And how many of the storage vendors out there use those guys for their chassis? And it's not too unusual to have one storage company go out and say, hey, Xyratex, I need this chassis, and Xyratex will put it in their catalog, and other storage vendors will go out and buy it as well.
Yeah.
So we've only got a couple minutes left here. Does anybody have any final words, or should we wrap up? All right, so thank you very much. Again, this has been a kind of a cross-pollination here. We've got vBrownbag, Tech Talks. I highly recommend, I love what vBrownbag is doing. You can find out more, just look at vBrownbag on Twitter or go to vBrownbag.com, or just look in the app, the iTunes store. There is a vBrownbag podcast series. If you're interested in what we're doing, you can look at techfieldday.com. You can find us at techfieldday on Twitter. And you will soon, you can also find the GestaltIT Roundtable podcast, gestaltit.com/podcast, or just look for GestaltIT in the iTunes store, and you'll find more conversations like that. Yeah. But for now, Andy, Enrico, Tom, thank you for joining me.
And I just want to point out that NetApp Insight is better than a SAD hard drive.
NetApp Insight, better than a SAD hard drive. That will be the tagline for this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.